Is decentralized finance dead? All these projects in the space, left and right, just falling apart. And I've just lost a lot of faith in it. There's not very much out there right now where I'm like, oh yes, that's a great place to put my money. But I am wanting to get back to true DeFi, true decentralized finance, and that is with yield farming. I had a great AMA with AJ from the EMP team the other day, and SparkSwap is a great place to do yield farming on the PulseChain. No Ponzi-nomics, just a real service provided, revenue in exchange for that service. It's the way capitalism is meant to work. And this could potentially be a place for you to make passive income as well. So this is SparkSwap, again, from the same team that brought you EMP. AJ is a good friend, but this is one of the largest decentralized exchanges that is on the PulseChain. So the PulseChain is, of course, the chain. It's part of Richard Hart and his ecosystem. Personally, I'm not a huge Richard Hart fan myself, but Hex and PulseChain have a very big community. And so being one of the largest decentralized exchanges on the PulseChain is going to put you in a good position. So of course, you can use SparkSwap. So if you want to just swap on the PulseChain, you just go to Trade Exchange. You choose the token you want to swap from and what you want to swap to. You can also use SparkSwap to bridge things over to the PulseChain. So you can go from BSC. Let's say you have DAI on BSC and you want to go over to SDAI on Pulse. You can use their bridge. So there's a few different ways that you can make money on a decentralized exchange like this. So the main one is going to be just the liquidity farms. So anytime that you're going to be doing swapping on a decentralized exchange, you need there to be liquidity. So if people are wanting to trade Spark tokens and get Pulse tokens back, well, those Spark tokens and the Pulse tokens need to be available for when that swap happens, they can get paid out immediately. So, and usually these decentralized protocols don't have enough capital in themselves to provide the liquidity. So what they do is they reward their users for providing liquidity. So you can go on to their farms and you can see like the B-Spark to Pulse liquidity pool is paying out 176% APR. And it pays out in Spark tokens. So you can see the APR is going to be different for the different pairs. And basically, it's a combination of how much demand there is for that swap and how many other people are already providing liquidity. So if there's a really popular swap where they need a lot of liquidity and there's not very many people providing liquidity for that pair, then they're going to raise the APR. That encourages more people to provide liquidity. On the flip side, if there's not a lot of demand for a certain swap and there's a lot of people providing liquidity, there's going to be a very low APR percentage because they don't need that liquidity as much right now. So basically, when you're providing liquidity, you're creating liquidity pool tokens. So for B-Spark Pulse, you're basically creating these liquidity pool tokens that are half B-Spark, half Pulse. So, and you can create these on SparkSwap as well. If you go to Trade Liquidity, you can go here, click Add Liquidity, and again, it'll tell you, well, which two tokens do you want as part of this? So again, for the farm that we were looking at, we would do Pulse and B-Spark. You add equal amounts of Pulse and B-Spark into a liquidity pool token, and then you have these LP tokens. Then when you go to the farms, you can approve and you can put your liquidity pool tokens in there, and you'll start getting this APR. So this is the current APR. So again, this is based on what's happened in the past. So past performance is not always indicative of future results, but it gives you kind of a good number to look at. You do have to be a little careful. There's risk of impermanent loss whenever you create liquidity pool tokens. Basically what that means is if one of the tokens raises or lowers in value, your liquidity pool tokens, since they're half and half, are not going to go up as much as the token itself. And so you're going to miss out on some of those gains. So for example, if you have Ethereum DAI, a DAI is a stablecoin. Ethereum, I'm sure you're familiar with. But if Ethereum was to 10x, you are not going to get that full 10x if your Ethereum is wrapped up in a liquidity pool token. So we call that impermanent loss. And I could probably do a whole video on this, but I do have this impermanent loss calculator. But if you, let's say we have Ethereum at 3,000 and DAI is at $1 because it's a stable coin. Let's say Ethereum does, well, let's not say 10x. That's too much. Let's say it 5x's, okay? 15,000 for Ethereum. That'd be amazing. But DAI is going to still be at $1. So that means if you had $500 of Ethereum and $500 of DAI and you just held them, you didn't put them into a liquidity pool token, after this 5x, your total value will be 3,000. But if you're in liquidity pool token, again, you have $500 of Ethereum, $500 of DAI. And then again, if Ethereum 5x's, your value is only 2236. So there's about $770 worth of impermanent loss as if you had just held the token. So that's impermanent loss, which is a risk. But again, in exchange for that risk, you are getting an APR to help compensate for that, a reward. Now, one that looks really interesting here on the farm page is SDAI to DAI, because those are both stablecoins. So again, if we go to our calculator, there's not going to ever be any impermanent loss because the price of all the tokens involved is going to always be $1. So this is 53% APR on a stablecoin to stablecoin farm with no chance of impermanent loss. So that's very interesting to me. Now, another risk on these yield farming platforms is that you're not paid out in USDT or DAI or a stablecoin like that. You are paid out in Spark tokens. So that's the native token of the SparkSwap. And what we've seen on other yield farming protocols is they're paying out in their token, but then there's not much to do with the tokens on the platform other than just sell it. So the price, as people are getting their rewards for providing liquidity, the price of the native token generally just goes down, down, down. Your APRs start going lower and lower because the value of the token you're earning goes down, and they fall apart eventually. So SparkSwap and the team there has come up with a mechanism to try and help stop that inflation of their Spark token. So they've created Spark 404. So 404 is a new technology in the blockchain space, and it basically combines tokens, ERC20 tokens, like the tokens we're used to, BNB and Ethereum, all those. It combines those with NFTs. So it combines fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens. Again, could do a full video on 404. I just love the way that technology advances. Even blockchain technology, new stuff coming out all the time. But essentially with 404s, you can buy tokens. You can buy fungible tokens. So I just want 5 tokens, but you receive NFTs. So they're going to be different. Again, that's what fungible means. Fungible means they're interchangeable. Non-fungible means no, each one is distinct. So what the team has done to try and help the inflation of Spark is you can, instead of selling your Spark, because that's what causes inflation. If the only thing you can do with a token is sell it, well, then the price of that token is going to go down over time. But they've provided something else to do with Spark tokens. You can burn your Spark into B-Spark tokens. So when you burn the Spark tokens, that means they're no longer available to sell, which keeps the price of Spark up high. And then in return, you get B-Spark tokens. So SparkSwap has its own NFT marketplace where you can see the Spark 404 NFTs. These little, they're Sparky the robot. And you can see there's different rarities, like different colors. This one has a cowboy hat. But these 404s, you burn Spark to get them, and then you get rewards. So you get rewards, reflection rewards. So when people burn Spark, there's a fee that's taken out, and that goes to the NFT holders. When something's sold on the marketplace, those fees, some of that is going to go to the NFT holders. So then your Spark, instead of selling it, it turns into another revenue stream. So again, the goal is just to provide another use case for the Spark token so that people don't just sell it. So similar to the farms, they also have these vaults, which these live over on Dex Finance. And Dex Finance and the EMP team have combined forces for a lot of what they're doing here. But these are going to be very similar to the farms, except for they're easier to get into. So you can zap in. So again, if you're wanting to get into the farms, you have to go and you have to make sure you have the right amount of the 2 tokens you're wanting to combine into a liquidity pool token. And then you have to actually add the liquidity to build the LP token, and then you put it into the farm. Over here on Dex Finance in the vaults, you can just zap in. So that means it will do all those steps behind the scenes. So you can just say, hey, I want to take my Pulse tokens. Go ahead. This is a Spark wrapped Pulse liquidity farm. But you can just say, hey, put in, this amount of Pulse, and it will do all the swapping behind the scenes that it needs to do, combine the LP token, and get it invested. So zapping in, a much easier way to do this. Also, the vaults, you can auto compound. So if you'll notice over on the farms, we talk about APR. That's your annual percentage return. And then over on the vaults, we talk about APY. That's your annual percentage yield. And the difference between those two is if you compound. So your APY is your number if you compound. APR is the number if you don't compound, if you take it all out. So a whole bunch of different vaults here that you can look through. They give a risk for each of them. So it might be worth, $7 million in TVL over here on the Dex Finance vaults. So it might be worth taking a look on here and see, hey, are there any that are lower risk that have a really high APY? So you might see some crazy ones on here. Just be cautious because this is wrapped ETH, which that's a pretty, well-known token. But then there's this Brett token, which I don't even know what that is. So again, the risk on this one is, you're getting 10% a day. But if that Brett token loses all of its value, you're going to be in trouble. So let's say the Brett token is at $10 right now. I don't even know what it is. A good YouTuber would go look up what it is, but not me. So we have Ethereum at 3,000, Brett at 10. Let's say Ethereum doesn't change in value, but the Brett token goes to 0. Actually, we can't even do that. Let's say it goes to a penny. Well, if you had $500 of Ethereum, $500 of Brett, and Brett went to 0, you'd lose just the $500 that for Brett. But if you create a liquidity pool token, you put $500 of wrapped Ethereum, $500 of Brett token, and then Brett token goes to a penny, you end up with just $31. Because as the Brett token loses value, you have to sell Ethereum. This is what happens behind the scenes, but you have to sell Ethereum and buy Brett token to keep that liquidity pool token at an even 50-50 split. So I'm not saying don't get into something like this, but just know this is degen, okay? Wrapped ETH with the Brett token is degen. There's not a lot of people going out to swap this Brett token. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But then you get down to this one, wrapped ETH with USDT. That's going to be a lot more stable, but you're only getting 45%, 0.12% a day. So you just have to make some decisions on your risk tolerance to decide which ones you're going to get into. Another feature they have to help give some use case to the Spark token is called the Sparkler. So this basically, you take your Spark tokens that you either purchased or you got them in the farms, again, as the reward for your liquidity pool. Then again, instead of selling the Spark token, which is going to hurt the price of Spark, you can stake your Spark in the Sparkler, which it always has the best theming and the best names, I will say. And then on the Spark you have staked, you get a 38% APR in the form of Spark Pulse liquidity pool tokens. So you're basically yield farming, and then yield farming the rewards from that is what the Sparkler is. But again, the goal is to provide something to do with your Spark tokens other than sell, to hopefully keep the price of the Spark tokens high so that these farms keep paying out very well. So the SparkSwap also has perpetuals. If you don't know what perpetuals are, it's basically just you can long or short tokens, and you can hold it for as long as you want. That's why they're called perpetuals, is there's not a cutoff date where, you have to sell on that day. You can open a position, either a long position, which means you think it's going to go up in value, or you can do a short position where you think it's going to go down in value. If you open a long position where, hey, I think the price is going to go up and the price ends up going down, you lose money. And in the same way, if you start a short where, hey, I'm betting that the price of that token is going to go down and then it ends up going up, you lose money that way as well. This is another thing. We could do a full video on perpetuals, but if you don't know what you're doing, do not do this. Don't go leverage up to 50, okay? Leverage is you taking a loan to make your either long or short bigger. So if you're a good trader and if you don't lose many trades, then yeah, sure, leverage is a helpful tool to use. But if you don't know what you're doing, a lot of people get burned a lot by leverage. So just be cautious. Leverage amplifies your gains, but it also amplifies your losses, okay? But again, this trading, the perpetuals, end up being another revenue stream for the SparkSwap ecosystem. Because every time somebody makes a trade, every time somebody opens a long, closes a long, opens a short, closes a short, there are fees that are taken by SparkSwap. So again, that's revenue to the ecosystem. So that is SparkSwap in a nutshell. Some calls to action. First off, go check out the SparkSwap website. If you're not familiar with PulseChain, read up a little bit on PulseChain. Read up on Richard Hart. It's a big narrative in the crypto space. Hex is one of the original crypto narratives. If you have more questions about SparkSwap, you just want to get to know the community, hop into Discord and Telegram. If you have things you want to do on the PulseChain, use their bridger, use their swapper. And if you're wanting to make money from SparkSwap, check out the farms and the vaults in particular, but then also check out the Spark 404s. Again, I still love crypto, but just not interested in the degen plays. Looking for things that provide actual revenue, and SparkSwap is one of those things. Love yield farming. Gonna have a lot more yield farming content coming soon. So appreciate you guys. Please hit like. Again, the currency of YouTubers. Some people want USDT. I just want likes. Let me know down below. Comment your favorite yield farming pairs. How long have you been yield farming for? What other passive income protocols should I check out? I appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your day. God bless.